Hello, here is our video covering training video covering the new V3 reporting functionality just recently deployed to our production environment of Navigate staff here at GRCC. Apologize that this training is coming after the deployment of this new V3 reporting. We had a strangely tight turnaround time here with the vendor. They announced this and deployed it all within about a week. So we hadn't had an opportunity to really familiarize ourselves and feel comfortable providing a training before it went to live. Now, the good news is that you still have the ability to toggle back and forth between the V3 reporting tools and the legacy reporting tools that we are all more familiar with. EAB has committed to keeping the legacy reporting suite around at least, they said, through the end of this calendar year. So that gives us plenty of time to familiarize ourselves with the V3 reporting tool. That being said, I encourage you to get in there and try to learn it as fast as you can. I think you'll find that it gives us a lot more power to customize reports on our own rather than having to perform within the parameters that Navigate used to give us in the legacy reporting tool. This is a lot more complex and customizable to help us answer the complicated questions that we ask internally. So that being said, very excited. A couple housekeeping items I just wanted to cover. One is that you will probably see today live student data. So I ask that you please do not share this video publicly. I'm going to try and get this into the hands of all of the folks who have access to any of the reporting tools in Navigate to make sure we get this out to everybody who will be using the reporting suite. That being said, I may miss someone. If you need to share this, no problem, but please do it via email directly to the person and let them know not to put this on a website or anything like that, because this does have live student data as of the time of this recording. Also, for that reason, you'll notice this is not on YouTube. This is a private file so that we can keep this contained. I will try and keep these examples today limited in their sensitivity. So I'll always try and use kind of less sensitive reports rather than some of the more sensitive information that is kept within Navigate. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. But before I do so, one last thing. This training report cannot possibly be contextualized to every single one of our staff users and their individual needs for the reporting suite. I understand that. I'm going to do the best I can to cover the basics of the reporting tool today in a way that makes sense for as many people as possible. But please keep in mind that you will still have the ability to ask your contextualized questions. The way that you use Navigate for reporting compared to the person who sits in the office right next to you is going to be different, let alone different departments, buildings, and even schools across campus. We have so many folks using the system, which is very encouraging. I'm going to try and cover the basics and get you 80% of the way there, but you may have questions that are more specific than what I'm covering today. And if that's the case, we will provide additional support. That will be offered in a couple different formats. So one, we will have some virtual drop-in hours. I will include the information regarding those in the email that I share this video out with. And then also we'll provide any sort of further support through the Navigate support form. If you have any questions about the Navigate support form, this is the Google form that we use for all Navigate questions internally. If you need help, if you need access, if you know someone else who needs access, like you just hired someone, if you're running into problems or you notice an error in the system, you can access the form by going to grcc.edu and searching my name. And then you can go ahead and click Navigate Service Request. That'll bring you straight to this form. It's very brief, automatically gets routed internally to the appropriate folks for response. So please use that anytime you have any sort of questions, and that includes any sort of questions you have about V3 reporting, if you can't attend those office hours, or if your question arises after those office hours take place. Okay, so I'm going to go back into Navigate here. We access the new V3 reporting tool the same way we access the legacy reporting suite by clicking on Reports. Right away, you will notice this defaults to your saved reports section. And this is actually really nice. If you haven't utilized Save Reports within Navigate, I highly recommend you do so, or at least evaluate different ways that you could be using this. I'm going to try and give you a couple examples today of ways that you could use saved reports. This is excellent for something anytime you have a report that you're running over and over and over again, rather than having to plug in all of the parameters each time. You can run it once, click Save Report, it'll populate here, and you can just run it anytime you want. So very useful tool, and I will show you briefly how to do that. Okay, the other thing that you'll notice right away is that you have this kind of message here across the top about V3 reporting functionality, and this is where the hyperlink is for accessing the legacy suite, or what they call V2 reports. You can click that, and that'll bring you over to the screen that you are more familiar with. The next housekeeping item is that, yes, you're probably going to see some reports here that you don't have access to run. That is totally fine and totally normal. We provision access to individual reports based on need and use case. I am the admin, so I have access to all of it. So if you see things here that you don't have, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal and totally expected. Okay, so I'm going to go back here, and this is back to the V3 reporting suite, and I'm going to go ahead and click on standard reports. Again, you'll notice I have a lot here. Yeah, you can just be thankful that you don't have all of them because you don't want what comes with it. I promise. So I'm going to go ahead and show you one really useful thing right off the bat is that you have the ability to search in here. So if you're somebody here internally that has a lot of reports, report options here, you can search for the appropriate report. For example, if I wanted to run a check-ins report, I can just search for check. It's pretty sweet. It brings me right to it. Likewise, if I wanted to say appointments, I can do that. Anything that has the word appointments in it will populate. So pretty cool there. You can just search for the appropriate report. These should all be reports, or at least most of them should be reports that you're already familiar with because you already had access. They just kind of moved them over and obviously changed how they work. So for our first example, I'm going to run an appointments report. This is probably the most common report that folks internally run. And you're going to notice right away, again, totally different. Fear not. I actually think this is a better system than the existing functionality that we had. Each report used to have kind of a set list of parameters and how you could use them. This gives us the ability to set those parameters however we see fit within some reasonable limitations. Okay, so let's go ahead and run an appointments report. We're going to start here by adding these data filters by ourselves. So there is a lot to choose from, and this is really nice. Now, it can be overwhelming at first, but I promise you, in my experience, the more you can choose from, the better, because it gives you more power to answer more complicated questions that you may have via V3 than we ever had in the V2 system. So I'll start by saying, show me any appointments that took place in the Academic Advising and Transfer Center. So I'm going to just search for location, and you'll see, boom, it pops up right away. Now, it's going to take some practice getting used to the buzzwords and the keywords here for your search. If you ever just want to scroll through them, you can do that as well. But once you kind of get an idea of it here, we can just say location, and right on top, we'll see location. Okay. Next thing is condition. Now, this is where this gets a little bit more complex, but also more powerful for us. With any of these data parameters, we have a list of conditions to choose from. So here we can say contains any, does not contain any, contains all, does not contain all, is empty, or is not empty, which is very useful. And I'll try and get to a couple examples of that during this training. But for this example, a very basic report contains any, and we're going to just go ahead and look at the list of locations we have here, and we're going to say Academic Advising and Transfer Center. Now, the second most common filter we probably have is date. So I'll go ahead and search date. I can see created at date, check-in date, but really what I want to look at is scheduled start date for the appointment. And then we can select from range. We can say last, next, current, since, before. An example of current is you could say, show me anything for the current month. You could say, show me anything for the last calendar month, which is really useful. And this is a very great example of a saved report filter. We could run this, let's say for the Academic Advising Transfer Center, show me any appointments that took place in the last one calendar month. And I'm in September right now. So this is going to be looking at August. So what that means is that on September 1st, I could run this report and it would show me all the AATC appointments for August. But then when I get to October 1st, immediately that report will update to only show me the appointments for September. So let's say on the first of each month, you're tasked with running a report for your area. How many appointments did you have in the last month? And you want to run that on the 1st of September for August, you can do that, which is really nice. And then this automatically updates, right? So you don't have to change these filters each month as you run it. You don't have to say, show me August and September. And then in October, you say, show me September. You can just say, show me the last calendar month and then save this report. And the way you save this report is just by clicking save as, typing in the name of your report, and then it'll populate back on your save reports. So very useful tool. Again, I encourage you to check that out. But I digress. Let's go ahead and look at any of the advising appointments in the Academic Advising and Transfer Center, which fell between, we'll just go with the start of September. Excuse me, I'm a little bit under the weather here, so my voice is a little hoarse. The start of September and, well, we'll just do the current date, which is September 27th. And we can go ahead and run that report. You'll notice here at the bottom, we still have, for those of you who are familiar with the appointments report and run it a lot, you still have those checkboxes for no-shows and canceled appointments, which is really useful. Kind of just like a quick filter there if we wanted to omit any of the students who no-showed or had canceled appointments. 1,005 appointments in the ATC in the last month, no doubt. If we wanted to omit no shows, we could do that by just selecting there and then rerunning the report. So you see that should wheedle it down a little bit, and still a bunch though, so it takes data a little while to populate. 889 there. So 889 attended, and you can also remove canceled appointments. But let's say we wanted to drill that down a little bit further and say, show me any of the students who were athletes that had appointments. So we can go to categories. Thank you. Again, got to figure out the way to search for these. Learning it right alongside the rest of you. And then let's say student athlete is the category we're looking for. So we can go ahead and run that report. How many of these appointments were for students that were athletes? And then we will get those results. So you could also say, show me any of this 13 of those appointments, right? You can say, who was this with? You can say, you get my point here. There's a lot of filters here for you. And then each one of these individual filters has the conditions as well tied to it. So you could say, show me students in this major, but you could say who are not in this major, which is that inverse search sometimes I think is as useful, if not more useful, than the standard search. Now, you may notice as we start to add several different lines here, this thing pops up here that says results must filter or must match all filters 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. That is the standard, and what we're used to with Navigate reporting is these stackable filters where students have to meet all of the criteria. Now, I just ran into an example earlier today where I didn't want them to meet all of the criteria. There were some or statements in there. And I was actually really pleasantly surprised, or not surprised, but just impressed that this new system allowed me to do that, whereas the existing reporting suite would have never allowed me to do that. I will get into that shortly for you in a referrals report here. But you can see this is how you would run kind of that standard report. You still have the ability to, let me take that out. Still have the ability to say who is the organizer. So you can say organizer last name, and you could type that in. So if I wanted to go with Kaylee, or you can start to add first name as well if you had somebody with the last name. You have appointment types, drop-in or scheduled appointments if you wanted to filter that. You also have as a meeting type, I believe, meeting type. So we can schedule or filter for in-person versus virtual. Again, just very powerful ability to run these reports in a way that get you exactly what you need rather than navigate kind of deciding what filters should be available to you. So I encourage you to get in there and play around with this and run some reports. And again, if these are reports that you run over and over and over again, I encourage you to set it up in a way that allows you to easily save that report and be able to run it again and again and again. And the most important thing to consider when running a saved report is that these date ranges can't be static, right? So if I'm looking at just 9/1 through 9/27, I save that report and then I run it again in October, well, I'm going to get the same results, right? Because it's still looking at this date. These aren't shifting. But if we can do something that's more dynamic, like last, next, current, or since, all of these things are more dynamic. So we could say last 5 days. Well, now you can run a weekly appointments report for the last 5 days, and those 5 days are moving as you are. So it's really useful there. So let's hop over and run another pretty common report, which would be our check-ins report. Again, search is very useful. I go to check-ins here, and I'm just going to go ahead and say, show me any check-ins at, let's say the let's say the math tutorial lab. And then again, we'll add date. So check-in date, date range, and we'll say, well, let's do something more dynamic. Let's say in the last calendar month. So this is going to show me all of the check-ins for that would be August. Let's do the current month instead. I don't think August was too busy of a time. So current month, mathematics lab, run that report, and this is going to generate all of the check-ins down below. And we can play around with adding a couple of different filters to that as well. So look at 572 check-ins in the last month. But let's say we wanted to say how many of these are new students, right? So we could go to category again. This is where we can start to, I hope you're kind of getting that grasp where you can start to pair together these different tools within Navigate, category, student lists with these reports and these filters to accomplish, I mean, just about anything, right? If you can think of a question and it's some data that's stored in Navigate or captured in Navigate, whether it's even a custom method of capturing in Navigate, like a student list or a tag, you could bring that into these reports and use them as filters or inverse filters. But let's say categories, contains, and we're going to look at cohort fall 23. These are our new degree seeking students. We click run report, and then we'll drill that down even further, right, into just the cohort. So 192, good work, new student. Okay, so let's move down here to the results and just kind of work through how this displays and how you can use this information and also modify how it displays. First and foremost, we have the ability to select all, and it automatically grabs everyone in the search results. So this is something that they've definitely heard from us. It used to only, I think, grab the first page, which was like, you could kind of set up to be like 50 or 100, but if it was beyond that, it brought up this additional pop-up. And if you missed that, then you were sending out your email to only the first 100 students in the report, which was not particularly useful. Now you'll notice it highlights everyone, 192 selected by default. So that's really useful. Or obviously you can grab individual students on this list. Now, keep in mind, if it's over 100 students, you're going to lose some functionality. So for example, I don't have the ability to add notes or tags to over 100 students at a time. But if I grab just a couple of them, you can see I've got the ability to tag notes or tags or issue referrals. So some of that's limited based on just the sheer number, and that's to prevent just kind of user error where an email accidentally goes out to 10,000 people when it was supposed to go out to 10 people or something like that. Okay, next we have student name. We have all these columns across the top. We still retain the ability to add and remove those columns. So we can go to View Column Manager over here, and then we can pick from these. Now, the nice thing is they've given us the ability to unselect all, which is definitely convenient for folks who are familiar with running these reports, having to go through all of the filters and uncheck them filter by filter. was a little thing that I found quite annoying. And now that that is gone, so we can unselect all and say, I just want to know like ID number, and let's say check-in date, for example. We can also look at service. We can look at the student's name, etc. In fact, let's go ahead and say course name too. That's another useful thing. And then we'll also say the student service as well. So let's do that. And then we'll just, to view the grid, we just go back to view grid manager, and then boom, we can see all of this. So we have tutoring, obviously is the primary function of the tutoring lab, and we have the course here. We can also filter for the course up here as well. So it's really nice if we wanted to say, just show me, you know, the one, well, you know, any one of the MA classes or mathematics classes. If you wanted to use those, that's how you would do that. So a very useful tool as well. Also working through here below, we have the ability to export these results to CSV. This no longer goes to a download center, but instead, boop, goes directly to your downloads, which is really useful. No more having to hop over to the download center. It just automatically goes into your downloads, which is pretty cool. Again, you have the column manager. Now you can add some kind of advanced sorting as well, but you can also, you'll notice at the top, these toggle options here. We can sort ascending or descending, alphabetically or reverse alphabetical, just by clicking these things as well, if you wanted to be able to do that. So again, so pretty easy here functionality wise. It's all there exactly how it was before. It just displays a little bit different and gives us a little bit more power. So I'm going to go back to reporting and run another report. This is the one I mentioned earlier. I ran this morning. I was asked to run a referrals report. So let's hop over to referrals. Okay. So in this referrals report, I was asked to run it for the basic needs referrals over the course of the last 2 years. I'm not going to do basic needs just because of the sensitive nature of it, but let's do academic advising. So we would say referral reason contains, and you can see it automatically populates. I'm going to do refer to academic advising there, and then we're going to do some date parameters. So I think it's issued, let's just type in date, create at date. And then I'm going to go back a ways on this one. So we're going to go all the way back to, let's do the start of fall 21, my birthday, August 30th. And then we're going to do that all the way through till today. And we're going to run a report for all the referrals that took place during that time. It's probably going to be a lot. Might take a second for this to load. There we go. 924, no doubt. So we have 924 referrals during this time. Now let's say I'm generating this report, and this is the context for mine. I wanted to look at faculty and staff utilization of Navigate for issuing these types of referrals. However, I happen to know that both myself and my former intern, Allison DeGraff, had issued referrals ourselves. In fact, a lot of referrals ourselves at the result of the quick poll. So we did 2 quick polls. One was in winter 22, I believe, and then one most recently, most of you are familiar with this, taking place at the beginning of this term. So we basically inflated these numbers. We issued a lot of academic advising referrals. My academic advisors are like, yeah, we know. So these numbers are boosted way up by Allison's and my actions. And to see staff and faculty adoption, I want to separate the ones that were issued by myself or by Allison from the ones that were issued by our staff and faculty. So what I started to do was I said add filter, and this is issued by, I said last name, I went in and typed in Allison. We both have kind of unique last names, so we should be good, but you can also stack first name in there. And then I added myself as well. So anyone that was issued by Allison or by myself. We'll go ahead and run that report. If I did this right, yep, no results. Okay, so I ran into this morning, and that's when I started to notice this here at the top. The results must match filters 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Again, stackable filters, that's what we're used to. It's always kind of been that way for Navigate reporting, but in this particular scenario, it's not working because it's looking for referrals issued to the academic advising areas during this date and issued by Allison and issued by me. Well, Allison and I did not co-issue any referrals. We are looking for 1 and 2 and 3 or 4, right? So that's something I just read up here, and I clicked here, went to this advanced section, and I realized there's some instructions here, and we can do this advanced conditioning on our own. So I just went ahead and followed the instructions and said, and 3 or 4, apply the logic, run the report, and it worked. It was pretty cool. So you have the ability now to say, not only are you selecting these filters, and then you have these conditions for each data element, but you also have the ability to kind of change the relationship they have with each other as well. So if you really want to get in depth in some of this stuff, and I promise you there's use cases all over the place for this, you can put in these kind of advanced filters yourself, and yeah, it's extremely effective at doing what it needs to do. Okay, I'm going to move over to reporting. I'm going to show you one last piece of this reporting tool. I mentioned this earlier, but the ability to omit student lists. In the past, this is where we've used something like advanced search in conjunction with the reporting functionality. So we would say, for example, show me anyone who's assigned to, let's see, this college success coach, and let me just pick one at random here. And then exists on a student list. Okay, so let's say we want to look at a student who is assigned to Becca, who was on a list. We could we can do that, right? We know how to do that. However, if Becca created this list because she reached out to half of her caseload about something, and she took that half and she put them on a list, and then later she wanted to reach out to the second half of the caseload, and so she wanted to say, show me any student who's on my caseload who's not on that list. We've never had the ability to do that before. And it was really frustrating because it was seemingly so common sense as something we would need, and it never existed. So we've submitted several tickets and enhancement requests to EAB. They've heard us and they've built this into V3 reporting, and I'll show you how. So in reporting, we have a new report, which is essentially an advanced search in report form, which is pretty cool. So I'll go to standard reports. I'm going to try and get everyone this report that has access to advanced search. I just need to vet the functionality of this report to make sure that it doesn't pose any sort of major privacy concerns. I don't think it does, and so hopefully we'll get this to you soon. There's a report called the Students Report. And this is, like I said, essentially this is an advanced search in report form. And so we have the ability to pick from any of these data elements, just like you'd expect from advanced search, but we also have the conditions attached to them. So let's use that same example. I think is it called relationship or assigned? Relationship type. Okay, is college success coach. And you can see this subfilter here. I click on that, assigned, and we'll click Becca here. Okay, so show me any student who's assigned to Becca and exists, we'll say, go to list, does not contain, and then we can select from these lists. So we can say is not on this list, right? Or is not on any of these lists. Like we can start to click through these. And so we can run that inverse search with student lists. So you can see now how we can use custom student lists, we can use tags, we can use categories to augment all of these reports in conjunction with each other. Extremely powerful. And the nature of this work is we don't know what questions we're going to have tomorrow. We don't know what question is going to arise a week from now that we're going to want to be able to answer. Sometimes these questions just pop into my head on my way home or in the shower or something. And I'm like, oh, I wonder how many blank, 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 blank. How many times have we gone in and navigate and oh, that filter doesn't exist? Well, that happens sometimes. Now we have the ability, or at least an enhanced ability, to build those filters ourselves and run these reports in a way that accommodates our needs rather than kind of a blanket thing. So I'm a huge fan of this. I do understand that it is a little bit more complex than the legacy reporting suite was. But I think it's in a good way because our work is complex and this allows us to answer those complex questions that come up. So I'm going to go ahead and conclude this training video today. As I mentioned earlier, we are going to offer a couple virtual drop-in kind of office hour sessions where I'll make myself available to answer your contextualized questions because I'm sure you'll have some coming out of this. If you get into those and there's a million people in there, I ask you to please be patient. I do my best to support everyone here at the college as much as I can. And if they become so popular that I need to offer more, I will do so. And then after that, we'll just use the GRCC navigate request form, which I showed earlier for any sort of additional training needs. If you are already working in V3, that's great. Let me know what questions come up. If you haven't gotten in there yet, I encourage you to do so as soon as you can and familiarize yourself with some of these new tools. And like I said, if you have a report that's due tomorrow and you don't have time to learn V3 right now, you can just hop over to the legacy version using that link that's provided in your reporting home screen by EAB. There is also an EAB, they're providing a training on V3 for the administration folks. So that's me. That's in October, in early October. So I'll be attending that. I may gather things from that that I can share out with the rest of the team as well. But we definitely wanted to get you something sooner rather than later. So, and I apologize for not being necessarily the content expert in this space yet. Although I will say, and I've said this for quite some time, you all are the content experts as it relates to the staff side functionality because you are using it day in and day out. So for example, you have much more experience with reporting than even I do. So you'll, I think, find this hopefully very beneficial, but you may uncover bugs here. And that's not uncommon at all with these new releases. If that's the case, just shoot me a ticket and I will raise that to the vendor. So I'm going to go ahead and conclude this today, but let me know how I can help you and I will be in touch with more information as I have it. Thank you.